Welcome to Sunshine Cathedral's Queer God Squad. It's Friday, June 14th, 2024. I'm Reverend Dr. Darrell Watkins, the senior minister here at Sunshine Cathedral.
I am Reverend Dr. Robert Griffin, the executive minister. Faith and religion can be complicated for the LGBTQ plus community. Surveys show that evangelical faith is the justification for the greatest attacks on the LGBTQ plus community.
I am Reverend Kevin Tisdall, the Minister of Education. The Queer God Squad is going to explore our religious community. Let's explore the big news of the day and what it means to you.
Surveys show that religious faith and church are the main causes of trauma in the LGBTQ plus community. At Sunshine Cathedral, we're here to tell you that you are God's miracle, not God's mistake.
This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. Pope Francis and trans sex worker Laura Esquivel's friendship highlights the power of acceptance. In a recent ceremony laying out plans for the upcoming 2025 Jubilee, Pope Francis outlined a vision of hope and solidarity focusing on the marginalized and oppressed. Throughout his papacy, he has shown a commitment to embracing neglected communities, including transgendered individuals, many of whom are sex workers. Among those is Laura Esquivel, a 57-year-old trans sex worker from Prague. The connection between Esquivel and the Pope began through the efforts of Reverend Andrea Conocchia, aka Don Andrea, a priest in Torvaianica, where Esquivel lived and worked. As the pandemic worsened, it left Esquivel and her peers in dire straits. But assistance came unexpectedly from the Vatican. Pope Francis also personally responded to their letters, offering compassion, prayer, and practical support. As vaccines became accessible, the women were invited to Paul VI Hall in the Vatican to receive their shots. In the summer of 2022, Laura Esquivel got a chance to be with the Pope, where she nervously disclosed being trans. And the Pope said, quote, "You are also a child of God," end quote. He also acknowledged their shared South American heritage with warmth and humor. The bond deepened when Esquivel was diagnosed with cancer and received support and care from the Vatican and Don Andrea. Expressing her gratitude, she also delivered homemade empanadas to the papal residency. This friendship is a testament to the transformative power of compassion and acceptance. And I think the last line captures it right there. It is part of the transforming power of acceptance and love. And I think this is one of the areas where this Pope continues to show himself as being human, as being pastoral, as wanting to break the Vatican walls down around these conversations. He invited them, not only has he done foot washing, but he's invited them to the Vatican probably more often than anyone else has publicly. And I think he's come a long way in this particular work. And we know that Esquivel and Don Andrea, with their work that they have done from their homeland, is also representative of the Pope as well, because I think they see themselves also as extensions of the Pope's hand, doing good wherever they can around the world. But I think the human part of this story to me is the empanadas. So I think that's the human part that, it's about table fellowship, and food brings us all together. So let's have some food and let's have some conversation, and we continue to move this forward. So I hope that whatever the plans are for the Jubilee 2025, that it heavily includes the trans community.
I would have done, and I hope he did, and I bet he did, unless he's got dietary restrictions, I don't know what kind of meds he's taking or whatever, but I hope he took a bite of an empanada right there, to say thank you. And I mean, I would have done, and I don't just eat anybody's food, but I think in that moment I would have had to,
Yes.
take a bite of that. If I haven't been in your kitchen, I'm probably going to eat your food. You know what I mean? But I would have made an exception there, I think, just for the impact of it, right? So this I don't know what you're called from Paraguay, Paraguayan, I don't know, but this sex worker from Paraguay and this Argentine cleric, probably 50 years apart in age, just having this bond. I don't care what anything else he's ever said. I don't care what any church has said. I don't care what sacraments you think are important, what scriptures you choose to read. That moment encapsulate what holiness is, what Christianity is, what Buddhism is, what Judaism is, what Islam is, what the Baha'i faith is, when they're working properly. Now, all of them can be super stank, but when they're doing what they're meant to do, that moment is what it's about. Whether or not you believe in God, what you believe in God, who your prophet or savior or way shower or Messiah is, what book if it doesn't get you to that moment, it's not working properly. And so yeah, just this old guy from Argentina and this young person with a hard life, and she's probably 40, but to me that's still young, right? So this young person who's lived a hard life, and but they share a culture and they share a background, and they talk about that, whenever I see that, like, I just couldn't care less about the dog. People fight ugly. They will insult people. They'll break up families. People put people out on the street, lose their jobs, everything over a belief, over a rule, a doctrine, a dogma. I was in Bolivia. He was in Uruguay at the same time. That rarely happens, but we did do a separate thing. And when I was in Bolivia, and I met I thought I was meeting a theater troupe. And they were, but theaters take money. So how and it was a drag theater. So how they made money to do their shows is they were also sex workers. So and they were trans. So these transgender women, these feminine presenting transgender people, performed on stage as drag performers, and then worked in the streets as women sex workers, and all to form a community and bring joy to the larger community with this theater, which is basically drag shows. And so this is fascinating. Loving them, they're great. And they're talking about, police harassment, even though what they're doing isn't technically illegal, but people don't like, so they have to stay in their district, the little red light district, and all these things are telling. But what was so amazing is that the theater was dark and the streets were empty on Monday night. Because that was their Bible study night. This may be one of the best churches in the history of the world. 10, 15 trans women bringing art into the world and taking a little Sabbath rest every week to reflect and study and be together. I'm sure they had cocktails or snacks or some kind of table fellowship / communion. That was church. That was church. I was telling me recently that last year here, when we had Ash Wednesday, we didn't do a traditional service in the room with an organ and readings, blah, blah. We met, because we do our food sharing on Wednesdays, we met our clients, people who come for food, no questions asked, about 1,000 people a week, and we just gave them ashes if they wanted them. A lot of them did. And so we just shared food and ashes and fellowship. It was the best Ash Wednesday I've ever experienced. That's what faith is. That's what church is. That's what religion is. That's what spirituality is. So, on another show, we asked if it was forgivable that he once said behind closed doors something that now is considered a slur. He didn't mean it probably as an ugly way, but he was still a word that you shouldn't use, and he let it slip. And but he apologized. He didn't make a lot of excuses, just apologized. And can we trust him? Yes, and here's why.
Yeah.
Here's why. Yeah. He'll screw up every once in a while. But when you're doing a lot of things, you're bound to screw up. The people who don't screw up are the people who aren't doing anything.
Thank you.
And who needs them?
Yeah.
So this is an amazing moment that these two people, and she could have expected him to be really quite unkind to her. And instead, she gave him empanadas and he made sure she got medical care. And that's the kind of, if that's the way Christianity always was, I think more people would be Christian.
Yeah. I all of a sudden want an empanada. I just can't wait to get one now. Yeah, we have conversations very often around this table about different religious groups and their leaders and what they think, feel, and say. And this Pope is going to do things that we're not comfortable with. It's simply a part, I think, of his job. But in this case, this Pope got it right. And if more leaders, religious, secular, whatever, would simply try to get it right, and when I say get it right, I mean follow a simple commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. It's really, for me, that easy. If you are not doing harm to someone, then I can begin to listen to you. If your life is dedicated to my destruction, then I'm coming after you, and I'm going to be very loud about it. This Pope is not that person. This Pope is a person who understands his position, and he also understands who he is and what he's supposed to be. And because of that, he is more cautious than we might want him to be at times, but he is also bodacious when he needs to be. I mean, can you imagine the previous Pope, Benedict, inviting a trans person into his inner circle and even touching them, never mind washing their
I
feet?
think she wanted to be the only one.
How about that? So again,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding, everybody. No, a little bit. I'm kidding.
my whole bottom line is that you have to accept people where they are. And I accept this Pope for where he is and for his past. And his past is kind of consistent. We're talking about when he was in South America and the things that he did there, living with his people as opposed to away from his people. There's a lot of this guy that I truly enjoy. And he's got me by 21 years, but I want to be as decent as he is when I get to be 87.
When they talk about the story in the Bible about Jesus at the well, this is a real live Jesus at the well story here. Just tell your story. And I know your story already, but just tell your story. And just, this is a picture of a Jesus and a woman at the well moment right here. So that's the image that comes to my mind when I think about this Pope. There's a lot of those moments of his work that I think about like that.
Yeah. There's a story where a woman is being stoned for adultery, but just her, as if adultery was a solo practice. So anyway, just her, and Jesus intervenes and saves her. And what he says is, go and sin no more. And people always assume he's telling her that. He might have been talking to the judgy people with the rocks in their hands.
Yeah, hello.
Like, I know what y'all are up to, and y'all have been on the other end of this. Some of y'all maybe with this very person. So how about y'all go and sin no more? I'm wondering if it's the hypocrisy, and because women didn't have a lot of agency, so she might have even had the option of saying no sometimes. But those people they didn't have to pick up those rocks. And I really think he was saying to them, go and don't be assholes anymore.
That's what they was accusing her, or someone had to do it with her, and where's the man?
Exactly. And I think that this Pope shows that kind of open-heartedness anyway. Sometimes he's bound by rules and tradition, but I think really he leads from his heart. Other popes, and I give him a little grace even for the ones that I didn't like very much, because it's not like they campaign for the job. And maybe behind the scenes some do, but like, you're just, people vote, and then next thing you know, you're the Pope, and you may not have ever pastored, but now you're supposed to pastor the world. Now, this was a pastor, and an activist, and so he's well equipped, and he's doing a good job. The one before him was a scholar. He just wanted to be in books and teach classes, and now suddenly he's got to be a pastor. Well, he was terrible at it because he had no idea how to do it. He never spent a day doing it, and so on. So sometimes, it's the Peter principle. You rise to your level of incompetence. But this Pope has risen to his level of effectiveness, I think. And he makes mistakes, and we call them out all the time. But that's our job as Protestants. But he also, I think he has a beautiful heart, and he does a really good job. Another scripture, as you were reading the story, that came to mind was Jesus saying, "Come to me, all who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And here's one of those all moments. I mean, and here, sex work is hard and scary, and these people couldn't get access to vaccines during a pandemic that had shut the world down. And so who is more heavy burden, heavy laden than that? And here's the Pope saying, come and I'll give you rest and vaccines. I just thought that was beautiful. And when you said love your neighbor, I can't hear that without thinking of Kathy and Jimmy, who said at an event in Dallas, Texas in the 90s, when she was doing the same thing. She was talking about addressing homophobia. And she said, just quit it. It's like Jesus said, love your neighbor. Just love your goddamn neighbor. And so I think Jesus and Kathy Najimy and you are all 100% correct. Just love. And whatever else he does or doesn't get right, the Pope gets the loving bit right more often than not. Well, that's today with the Queer God Squad. We want to thank you for joining us. We're here daily at 3 p.m. to have some fun and discuss what our LGBTQ plus community is talking about.
Sunshine Cathedral is the world's largest progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together, and we are all in this together. Remember that.
You are God's miracle, not God's mistake.
Until next time, we are the Queer God Squad. Goodbye.